Hello, I'm Kate Davis, and this is Humor in the C-Suite, a show about how leaders use humor to create an extraordinary work culture. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Aneace Haddad. He is a seasoned C-Suite executive coach and McKinsey certified senior advisor. Aneace brings a wealth of experience and transformative insights to the realm of executive leadership with over 1,800 hours of certified coaching, impacting over 300 individual senior leaders and aiding over 100 top teams across 15 diverse industries globally. He has become a trusted guide in steering executive teams to new heights. Now in his 60s, Aneace harnesses the opportunities and challenges presented in midlife to help executives unlock new energy and potential within themselves and their teams. His coaching style is shaped by a global perspective, combining proven leadership models with real-world insights from across cultural experiences with various stages of life. We had such an interesting conversation about humanizing life and leadership, how curiosity is one of the main goals to keep in your life, to keep you young and get the energy flowing. I just loved our conversation. So interesting, all the way from Singapore. What? I can't believe it either, guys. You guys are going to love this episode. So please welcome Aneace Haddad. Perfect. I was so excited to have you on, just reading through like everything about you, all your coaching and all your experience and what you're bringing, and now helping people in midlife and rediscover who they are and their energy. It's an amazing story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So my story is a bit long and roundabout. Started out as a techie, as a programmer, became a tech entrepreneur. I built a payment software company in the south of France, grew it to 30 countries, sold it in 2007 when I turned 47. And just before the global financial crisis and just before my midlife crisis. So
perfect.
It was perfect timing.
Comedy timing is everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I didn't plan it that way, obviously, but
no.
And then at the same time, after selling the company, I discovered that what I was most proud of was my people, which was strange to me because I was a techie at heart. I wrote our patents. So in that process, by the time I was 50, I had really gotten clear. I like people more than computers.
Wow.
So that sent me in a new direction. And then the last 15 years has been executive coaching, primarily C-suites. So over the last few years, it's been entirely C-suites, and 2/3 of the work is the C-suite team together, taking them out on retreats and working with them as a team. And then 1/3 is one-on-one coaching. So that's kind of
so interesting because it's really getting them to do the work. You're just you're just leading them to it. So
and even facilitating C-suite teams, it also is that because
yes.
I've learned that when they're a little bit younger, you need lots of guardrails and direction and stuff like that when you're facilitating. Mm-hmm. And then older, that just gets in the way. So you throw all that out, and you're creating presence, and you're creating a space for people to grow into, to expand, to be themselves.
Yeah. Are you enjoying living in Singapore now?
Yeah, Singapore. I've been here 18 years now, and
wow, okay.
It's full of people like me that are. We have a term for it today. We didn't have it when I was growing up. Third culture kids, where your parents are of one culture or two. You're growing up in a different world than they grew up in, and so you create a third culture. So. Yeah, so there are a lot of similarities between kids that grow up like that, even if they have completely different cultural upbringings. But the exposure to different cultures has caused them to create their own kind of a view of the world. And there's a lot more similarity between those people than with others of their same maternal and paternal cultures.
Yeah, and are you finding, so let's get into the humor of it. like American humor is American humor, European. How are you finding it? Like, are you using a lot of humor in Singapore? Like, you seem like a pretty chill, funny guy.
Well, yeah, my humor is not so much joke telling. It's
Yeah.
more just kind of laughing at things. When I introduce myself to a room, I'll talk about I've been married more than once. And so I've got grown children of my own. And now
Yes.
I've got two teenage children that I've been with since they were 8 and 9. And now they're 17 and 19. And so I'll
Wow.
ask the room, who here has teenagers in their house? And they'll raise their hand. I'll say, I've been around teenagers for a few decades. I still don't understand anything about them. And the whole room laughs and they get it.
That's
And they're
great.
all kind of in that same space. Their kids are growing up and stuff. So,
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of that humor is universal.
absolutely. Family. Do you have a favorite joke?
No, I don't have a favorite joke. There are things in the
No.
moment. There are
Yeah.
things that happen in the moment. It's more improv, if you like.
Yeah, well, I always, when I'm coaching C-suite people about how to use humor, I always start off with everyone has that party story, like you just
Yeah,
said.
yeah,
When you walk
yeah.
into a room, it's a great way
Yes,
to connect. Everyone has that one story that you tell. And
yeah,
it's so interesting because that way you're really in the room and being really
yeah.
present in the room. Do you find
It
when
starts with
you're
my name.
it it
It
starts
starts with
with
my
your
name, as
name?
I did a moment ago. And my name's
Yeah,
Aneace. People look at me and I say it's like a nephew, but not. And
but
then the
not
room is kind of
exactly.
quiet. And then all of a sudden, a few
No.
people get it, and the laughter comes out.
Yes, exactly. I love that. And because you're coaching so many just C-suite people, are you I find that when it's just them in a room, they're very different than when they're dealing with, their people, their
Yeah.
employees. Are you using humor or teaching them any benefits of that in terms of collaboration or innovation?
No, that's actually part of what I was really excited about this podcast about, is to begin thinking about those things. Because
Yeah.
I think I know intuitively there's a huge amount of value. You can see it. I mean, I'll use terms like, hey, nobody died, let's get pizza, in response to
Yeah.
something really bad going wrong. And they get it. And they go, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to deal with it. Yeah, so I was looking forward to this podcast to really begin thinking about that and solidifying some of these ideas.
Well, that's very cool. I love that because I do find I am such a huge believer, and now they're actually teaching humor as a course at Stanford University as a part of the business program. So there is a lot of research in terms of it, really being able to build meaningful relationships. And I think now, because you do come from that IT world, right? I think, and with all the AI and technology that's helping so many
Yeah,
industries and so many, well, people, including myself, I do find when we use humor to make that sale, to set us apart, what is going to set you apart when we all have the same knowledge? And building those meaningful relationships and using humor in those moments. If
yeah,
someone's selling me a car, or two guys are selling me the same car, I'm going to go with the guy I feel connected to. And usually humor
yeah,
can do that. So,
yeah.
have you ever found challenges within the cultural differences that you've been dealing with?
Yes, there are some cultures that well, I'm thinking like East Asian, like Japanese, Korean. There's a much more formal element there that comes down with alcohol and stuff like that. So there are environments in the culture where that can come down. So the humor there is different. It's more low stated. When you bring in family situations,
Yeah.
that is universal. So, like, I'll end a workshop after they've done some feedback session, intense feedback session, and after that they're all glowing and they're excited about what they've learned about themselves. And I'll ask, "Has anybody heard something new today?" And they'll go,
Yeah.
"Yeah, kinda." Have you heard stuff you've heard before? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I'll say, now sometimes people go home and they'll tell their spouse, "Hey, I was at this retreat and I figured this out about myself and it's so cool. And the wife will say, I've been telling you that for 20 years. You just don't listen to me. And the whole room, they laugh because it's universal. And
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, those kinds of things go through family related, as long as
Yeah.
it's not a
Toddler's a
serious,
toddler.
a toddler's a toddler.
No matter where they come from, they're still a
Yeah.
toddler.
This
And
guy I was coaching the other day, somebody asked his wife, he told me, somebody asked my wife, what makes Tom angry? And he's a techie, very high level in a company.
yeah.
And she told the friend, this is him relating the story. She told the friend, well, bad user interfaces, and when my 4-year-old daughter acts irrationally.
Yeah, that's it. It's okay. My teenage daughter, because you have teenagers, my teenage daughter, her caller ID for me when she was a teenager just said my dad's wife. So there you go. You can't win. Aneace, you can't win. Do you find in terms when you are coaching C-suite people, because that's what you're mainly doing now, or in your previous careers, and I feel like we live many lifetimes within our lifetime.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you were, when you were ahead of that company that you sold, did you lead with any humor? Did you lead with an iron fist? Did you feel like you could be yourself and bring that to your leadership style when you were younger?
No. Well, people that worked for me remember elements of that and they'll remind me of it. So there was something that was working. And I
Yeah.
still get messages from people even now saying that was like the most profound period of my
Wow.
life was working with you. So I do hear those things, but for me, I experienced it as extremely difficult and dour. It
Right.
didn't feel light. I must have brought some lightness into it. I don't remember exactly how. And looking back, there is so much that I would have done differently had I known. I didn't have a coach. We didn't really have coaches in those days, other
Coaches
than
then,
things.
no. And I'm really coming out of a generation where we didn't even have therapy. Like if you had therapy,
Yeah,
you were, you
yeah,
know, yeah,
yeah.
considered like you should
Stigma.
be institutionalized. Like it wasn't a thing. And I
Yeah.
would love a coach or mentor, or, something like that. And it's interesting that your employees saw it as a very special time and you saw it as a very lonely time. And are you
It was
bringing
extremely lonely. Yeah.
Yeah, and are you bringing that to your coaching now when you can recognize when people are at that level and how lonely
Oh
it
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
be?
I can I can smell it from a mile away. Like you can, and then and then there's perspective. You can help shift the perspective. Recently, a theme, well, theme. Every once in a while, somebody in their 50s will say something like, this is my last dance, my last gig, my last rodeo, or whatever language they're using. I really got to
Yeah,
make it work, but it's not working. And there's this tenseness. There's holding on to things
pressure.
really hard. And then I'll go, but you're only 57. And they'll go, what?
Yeah, people are living
Why would I
longer.
live
You're good.
longer? Yeah. You're not going to be wanting to do the same thing 10 years from now as you're doing today, but you're going to want to be doing things because we're living longer, and that generally the new perspective just kind of allows people to relax into it a bit more and go, okay, we're not at the end yet.
Yeah,
So
I love that. Yeah, and you know what? It's so interesting because I'm all about trying new stuff and stuff I've never done as I get older. And when we use humor in those moments to be more playful in discovering things that fuel our soul. Right.
yeah.
So I bought a sailboat without ever having sailed in my life, like a 30-foot sailboat
Oh
a few
wow.
years back. I have no idea how to sail. I'm like, I'll just hire someone to teach me, and sometimes, I'd go out for the first couple of years and it'd just be a shit show. The boat would just start spinning around. And now I'm pretty good at it, but oh my God. But for me, it's being playful. Like you might try something that, you always thought you'd love, you end up hating it. It's always bringing those new things into, you're never too old, I
Yeah.
don't think. And I
Yeah.
think it's, and I love how you're bringing that perspective to your coaching now, now that you're in your 60s and, because there
Yeah.
is so much also ageism within, maybe not so much in the C-suite, because it's wisdom and all those things, but teaching those leaders to be more playful. Hi, it's Kate. I can't believe you made it halfway through the show. Look, if you or anyone you know would like to be a guest on Humor in the C-Suite, I would love to have you. So email me, kate@katedavis.ca. Do you find there's a lot of women leaders that you're dealing with as well? And are you dealing with those differently?
No, unfortunately. Well, it depends on the industry, but
Right.
unfortunately, it's still there's still very much a glass ceiling. You'll find in a C-suite, typically C-suites of 7, 8 people, you might have 2, 3 women at the most.
Yeah.
There are C-suites of when I was in South Korea a couple months ago. There was one woman in the group of
Wow.
8, and they tend to be kind of in the stereotypical roles, CHRO,
Right.
possibly marketing, maybe finance. Yeah, they're still neat. And unfortunately, I think the way the world is going, anti DEI and all that kind of thing,
Yes.
we got a little bit of a period here of going backwards a
Going
bit, maybe.
backwards? Yeah, I agree. I don't ever remember feeling like the world was this just on a trajectory that is just going backwards to me, but here we are. Are you going to start injecting humor and trusting it? Like, do you feel like you could be coached and really inject humor into your day-to-day life and your coaching?
Oh, absolutely. I do use it a good bit, but again, it's very in the moment. There's a guy I was coaching during COVID who was quite serious and dour. Again, that word. I don't know why that word's coming up this morning. And grave, that kind of thing. He was grappling a bit with a touch of depression going on. And there was a moment, I'm not sure how he got onto this. He says, "Oh, well, I have no ego." And I just burst out laughing. I couldn't hold it back. And he looks at me really surprised. I say, "Dude, if you don't have an ego, you're going to walk out of the street and smash into a car because you're one with the car and you're one with everything. Your ego protects you."
There's a place for
So
an ego. Yeah,
there's a place
absolutely.
for an ego, and we can laugh
Yeah.
at the ego. It does stupid things, but wow, it keeps you alive in a lot of situations because otherwise you just can't tell the difference between you and the car coming at you. It's all the same.
Yeah,
So
and I think what?
he eventually told me that what really helped was the laughter, because we would he'd be really really serious, and then I just burst out laughing. Like, dude, what's the seriousness for? And he's saying something that sounds kind of silly. And then when he thinks about it, he'll go, "Yeah, that was kind of silly." And then he'll start laughing. And he said that's what really helped him a lot during that period, was just the lightness. It doesn't have to be heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny because I just started coaching. I'm a new coach, brand new coach, and really going into like small C-suite groups, teaching them how to bring humor into their workplaces. And because the number one thing employees are saying now is they want their leaders to speak like normal people. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds crazy, but you're
Yeah.
like, okay, let's find, but I had one leader say to me, one CEO say to me, it's hard for me to use humor because I'm so sarcastic and it comes across as really,
Yeah.
just putting people down, because as a leader, you can never punch down.
Yeah.
Self-deprecating is always the best.
Yeah.
Right. But there are
Yeah.
ways to bring humor, or, you find what you're looking for, and it's finding those little bits of levity within
Yeah.
your workplace and, and noticing them. But it's also, there's lots of ways we can bring humor into our leadership style, even with the sign off on an email.
Yeah.
Just little things like that can show we don't have, it's not about telling a joke. It's really about,
Yeah.
just bringing those little moments and finding those little moments,
Yeah.
being more playful so people can come with you. Do you find like, when people are too serious, they can't say, people are scared to go, I have a problem. I don't know this,
Yeah.
and I find there's such power in I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, there are whole there are whole facilitations I've done with one level down from the C-suite, where you just
Yeah.
have people practice saying "I don't know." So and it's very difficult for a lot of them. So the rule is you say "I don't know" to every question. So, how old are you? I don't know. What do you think of this thing, this problem we're having in the company? I don't know. And they experience the difficulty of that, and that can be quite playful and fun because it's just so different.
That's
That is really
great. I
powerful.
love that. If you had any advice for your younger self, what would you tell yourself?
I guess the biggest thing is life is long. There are always opportunities. Because I think what it felt like for me when I was running my company was that I had really one shot in life, and that was it. And I had to make that shot work. Otherwise, there are no other shots. For some reason, that came into my head when I look backwards. I don't know why that was there, but actually, I see it with other people I coach. I think we get our nose to the grindstone. We can't see the forest for the trees and all that kind of thing. I think that's
Yeah.
the main thing. Life is long. There're going to be lots of different things. It's going to turn in so many different directions. Enjoy this now.
Yeah, I love all those things. Do you believe that humor can play a role in building really strong relationships, like throughout teams, even intergenerationally?
Oh, yeah. And it's in our personal life as well. I mean, we laugh together, it brings us closer. So that's true everywhere. What I love most in my retreats is at the end of it, when someone says, I feel so much more human. And
Wow.
it's quite a common thing for people to say in different countries, different cultures and stuff. But coming out of the retreat saying, I really feel so much more human, and they're surprised at that. And I've heard it enough times, that's important to me. And I think humor is a really fundamental part of that. You brought up
Thank
AI
you.
earlier, and I use ChatGPT all the time, but its humor is really bad. It just doesn't get
So
it.
bad, which means I have a job. So let's
Yes.
keep it that way. Er,
And when I use humor and it recognizes it, it goes, "Oh, that's funny."
yes, yes, absolutely. I was talking to someone who worked at Google and they really, they were explaining Chat GPT to me. And it's like, if I say once, you're going to know it's upon a time. It picks up on everything. But the best jokes are not knowing what's next.
Yeah.
It's that misdirection. It's that tag or that callback. So definitely. And then I've been reading this book called Humor Seriously, which is an incredible book. And it really does explain the difference between levity, humor, and comedy because and it really emphasizes it with exercise. So if you exercise, you have movement at the bottom of the pyramid, then you have exercise, which is movement with purpose, right? And then you have an athlete, which is exercise with purpose, then you're an athlete. Well, the same with humor. You have levity at the bottom of the pyramid. It's finding joy in those moments. It can be charismatic. It can be, someone being silly or stuff like that. And then you have comedy above that, which is basically, or humor above that, which is levity with purpose. And then you have comedy above that, which is, humor with purpose, which is comedy, which is someone
Huh.
who's a comedian. So
Huh.
there are many different levels that we can bring humor and levity into the workplace. And when I started coaching, I'd get so nervous. And then I was talking to a coach and she's like, well, when you go to the mechanic and your car rattles, right? And because you have a car rattle, but then the mechanic gets in, it doesn't make that rattle. He can't help you because he can't find the problem. It's the same when I go into coach now. If I get the eye rolls that they don't want to be playful or have fun or, put that little like adult chip in the middle of our heads in the middle of the room and leave it alone for a bit, then, those are the best moments for me. Do you find that as a coach? The moments that, where you feel like, oh, I don't know how to get through to you right now. I'm figuring that out. And I find, if you can have a bit of levity in those moments, it goes a long, long way.
Yeah. Well, one element is the one-on-one coaching. So I kind
Yeah.
of have a different answer to your question based on whether it's one-on-one or team. If it's a
Oh,
team
let's do
environment,
both.
yeah. If it's a team environment and I'm not getting through to someone, I just leave it to the side and I don't put any energy or into that. I don't worry about it. I just, my mind goes to this person will come along when they want to come along. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
The risk is to get drawn into it and then energy goes that way and then it makes you kind of brittle. And so levity there can be fun. There might be a moment someone says something and it's gone long enough that you've developed a bit of a relationship and you'll say, okay, for the serious note, let's go back to you or something like that. You can play with it like that once you've built a bit of rapport. And then the person will laugh, others will laugh. And
Yeah.
one on one, if it's really critical in that moment, I just let it go past, or I would bring attention to the mood and the emotion that's happening and see where that goes. It's curiosity, just following the curiosity.
Yeah, and curiosity is such a healthy part of being of humor to me because it is being playful enough that you can stay curious and adventurous, like
Yeah,
bringing those new things into our lives.
you can make a big mistake and be completely wrong on your assessment, but if you're coming at it with curiosity and it just kind of then goes away, that's fine. It's critical for coaching. I don't think you can be. I'm wondering if you can even lead at the C-suite level if you don't have that curiosity. It might work in an old environment where things are fixed and there isn't a huge amount of change and all that. You know what you're doing and everybody knows what they're doing. You're just moving forward. But in a complex world that's constantly shifting and nobody really knows what's going on,
Everything's so
um,
fluid. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how you get through that without being profoundly curious.
I want to be coached by you. This is amazing. In your personal life, because you've gone through, now you're on your second set of teenagers and all that. Do you find when you use humor with them, it goes way, way further and it really
Oh,
helps build that connection?
oh yes. I mean, yes, definitely. I mean, dad
Yeah,
jokes. That's where dad jokes come from.
absolutely. Everyone loves a good dad joke.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
the
God.
more people groan and roll their eyes and say, stop doing that, the better it
Yeah,
is.
I know. Oh my gosh. So funny. And they're all like, I just find like, all your kids come from you, but they're all so different.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. So, have you like experienced some like personal benefits when you've used humor in your leadership style?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just makes everything easier. It's like lubricant. It just makes things flow. There's more connection, less defensiveness. The ability to laugh at oneself is just tremendous. Yeah, no, I think it's extremely powerful. Extremely powerful.
And do you find, how old were you when you wrote The Eagle That Drank the Hummingbird Nectar?
I was 62.
Oh, wow.
62.
Okay. I I thought you were still in like I thought you were like 61. I don't even know. I don't know why. I don't
A youngin, just a kid.
you're just a kid. Yeah, that's what I thought. Because you have another book after that, right?
Yeah, soaring beyond midlife. That was last year. I was
Oh,
64.
I love it. Oh, okay, okay. And in that book are I now I haven't read it, but I'm going to now because I didn't know about it. Is it mostly coaching? And are there any elements in that where you're just like you take your work seriously, but you take yourself less seriously as you get older?
Yeah, but it's not really developed there, and I think that's important to develop in work going forward.
Yeah. Well, I'm coming to
It's
Singapore. I'm
yeah.
coaching you. This is it.
You are coming. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that one is. There is levity. So the title is "Soaring Beyond Midlife: The Surprisingly Natural Emergence of Leadership Superpowers in Life's Second Half," and it
I
came
love that.
about after. It's kind of a continuation of "The Eagle That Drank Hummingbird Nectar," although "The Eagle" is a first person narrative fiction. It's a true
Yeah.
novel, and it's around 20-25% real anecdotes of my life, and the rest is fictionalized me at 50 going through that transition. The next book, Soaring Beyond Midlife, looks more like a traditional leadership book, but it's mixed with a lot of anecdotes and stories, and there are four CEOs. A couple of the stories are similar to the other book, and it came about when I was noticing a qualitative shift in how people under 40, executives under 40 and executives over 40. Under 40, there would be things like someone saying, what would you do in my situation? You've run a board before, you've been a CEO. What would you do? Over 40, they almost never asked for
What would
advice.
you
So
do?
I was beginning to see these shifts. I made a choice. I made a conscious choice at one point when the shifts were becoming too big and too difficult to ignore. And I decided I would no longer coach individuals or teams under 40. So I made that decision a couple of years ago. And this book emerged from that because then I was really, really focused. What is it that I'm picking up? What is it that I'm seeing? And when I looked into, so it's based on what I call three winds of change. One of them is physiological. Our bodies are changing. Obviously, we know about that. Neurological, our brains are changing. So we might forget where we put our car keys, but our two hemispheres are connecting more. And so we're
Okay.
connecting the dots in ways that we weren't able to as easily when we were
Yeah.
younger. We become more comfortable with paradox and ambiguity. Poetry, so another area with humor, poetry started, the paradox and ambiguity of poetry starts to speak to us a bit more. And the third area is parental. Our kids tend to be, I'm generalizing, but our kids tend to be growing up and leaving home. And we start to realize the parent I was when the kids were younger is not the parent I am now. And the parent I'm going to be when
Yeah.
they're grown up and gone is also a different parent.
Yeah.
And if I want to be, I won't be able to tell them what to do, although a lot of us keep trying until they're like 40 or 50 years old. I won't be able to say, they're not listening to me anymore. So if I want to be
Yeah.
valuable as a parent, I need to find something else. And a lot of that mirrors what's happening at very senior leadership. It's what got me here was my functional expertise. And I'm still holding on to that because I feel like that's my only value, but that's not going to get me forward. It's letting go of that and realizing that I have more value beyond the answers that I can give or the advice that I can give.
Yeah, I love that. And so much of that is ego, right? Not wanting to let
Yeah,
go and being afraid of, if I do let go, then who am I and what am I going to be?
exactly.
I find the same for me with comedy because I do mostly speaking now and coaching, but I'm also still like I just finished headlining a couple comedy clubs. Right. And a part of me is like, I'm too old for this shit. What am I doing? Like there's a 10:30 show. Like I should be in bed.
I'm in
Right?
bed.
Like what am I thinking? And a part of me thinks it's my ego. Like I don't want to let go of that. I love the creative part of it. But at the same time, I'm just like, what, in my comedy career, I've done really well. I've made a great living, but I'm not a famous comedian, who's like selling out huge theaters and I want to do a comedy tour. I want to call it I'm too old for this shit. And every
Yeah,
show I want it to be at 2 PM because then
I think that's perfect. So here in Singapore, we're 3 hours ahead of Sydney. My wife's from Sydney, and I
okay.
love New Year's Eve. We can watch the Sydney fireworks that happen at midnight over there, 9 p.m. here. We watch the
Yes.
fireworks and we go to bed.
And then you're in bed. You're done. I love that. That's
9:30.
so funny. It's so great. Do you coach in different languages? Are you one of those guys or is it
Um,
all English?
I will occasionally coach in French, but generally it's people who are over here or somewhere. It's all Southeast Asia, all across Asia. So generally, even if it's in French, it'll shift back and forth because they're working a lot in English. So their
Right.
professional language is English, and there's jargon and
English.
stuff that they lose from having left France and living in. So it'll
Yeah.
be a mixed kind of
Wow.
conversation.
That's amazing. I've loved our conversation so much. I feel like I could just talk to you forever. I look,
Yeah,
we
it's
do
fun.
love ending. We love ending the podcast. I usually ask the guests, what is one of the funniest things that's ever happened to you?
Yeah, I was reflecting on that. It's a really a hard one, and there's one that comes to mind, so I'll share it. I don't know if
Yes,
it is the
please.
absolutely funniest. It was many years ago when I was traveling, when I was running my company in France, and I'd be traveling on British Airways all the time. And at some point, I was on a flight, and the flight attendant comes around with meals before meals were being served. It was like a first kind of thing, and she looks at the number of she said, "Mr. Haddad." I said, "Yes, here's your kosher meal." And I'm going, "Kosher meal? I'm not Jewish." But I know Haddad is the grand rabbi in Paris is a Haddad. So I know my last name is often thought
Right.
to be, in North Africa, Haddads tend to be Jewish. So she said, "But you're Mr. Haddad and you're at 33A or whatever number it was." "Yes, here's your kosher meal." I'm not, no, I didn't order a kosher meal. And there was a Jewish woman next to me, Orthodox, and she got her meal. So clearly they had put us together and they were serving us these meals. And then I thought, okay, well, it was just a one off. Somebody screwed up with my name. And then a couple of weeks later, again on British Airways, "Mr. Haddad, here's your kosher meal." I'm going, no, 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 there's something wrong here. And at the time, I saved money for the company. I often didn't take business class trips because I would often get upgraded back when they were upgrading pretty freely. And I was in New
Yeah.
York, getting ready to fly back to Paris, on the getting on the plane, and I asked the counter. I said, am I going to be able to be upgraded tonight?" I was looking forward to getting there in a business class seat, sleeping. And she said, "Yes, no problem." And then she's looking at her company. She said, "Oh, but we don't have your kosher meal in business class." And I lost it then. I was tired. I spent the whole day in meetings. I wanted to sleep. I wanted to go home. And
Yeah.
I got angry. They said, "I don't want a kosher meal. Get that out of your system." And they waited for me to calm down. And she said, "Well, we'll upgrade you. Don't worry. But you need to check with your office because somebody has put it into the system." So I went back to the office and I
Yeah.
shared this. And one of my admins, she still laughs about it today. She was red when she talked about it. She went red that day, and I said, "Oh, Roberta, what did you do?"
Yeah.
And she says, "I know you don't like." In France, they would often have very raw roast beef, if you're familiar.
Right. Yeah.
I like it a little bit more cooked. And when she had told that anecdote to the travel agent says, "Oh, I know exactly why." so
That's
so they had put
so
me down
funny.
as Jewish. So yeah.
So
So
you get cooked meat. I love it. What a great, that's a great story. That's it. We're going kosher.